Greetings, everyone. My name is Charles Kovach, the not safe for work presidential candidate campaigning for a more direct democracy. And because I think people would lose interest if I were to just say, hey, I think a more direct democracy would be a good idea over and over again, I make videos talking about topics that catch my eye and I think it would be good to weigh in on and maybe tell people, hey, this is fucking us or going to fuck us. So let's get into the video. First off, I'd like to show you something. And the camera, there we go. Okay, see this thing? It's called a sword. One thing you'll notice about the sword is it's got two sides, and both of them are sharp. It means they hurt. Don't get stabbed or cut by it. So why am I showing you a sword? Well, that's because many things in life are like a sword. There's two sides. Okay, and they both have their sharp edges. And that sounded really stupid, but I'm going to stick with it. Anyways, you get the idea. You've heard the saying. Life is like a double-edged sword. Right? Decisions you make, not everything about it is going to be rosy. There's going to be some good things. There's going to be some bad things. One thing that Trump said recently in a rally he did was that he was going to give communities to decide whether or not they want to take in immigrants. Well, I'll go one better. I'll give people the ability to decide whether or not they want to arm military groups in foreign countries, creating situations that cause immigrants in the first place. I mean, that's kind of just a natural thing that would happen if we all had a more direct democracy. We could all choose if we want to involve ourselves with other countries' internal affairs. And again, as I've said in a way early video, this is something that I don't take lightly, because no one is an island. Sometimes there are situations where we have interests, sometimes there's not. However, most of the countries where we're probably in right now, I doubt we really have any real interest other than robbing the country of its resources. Another thing that caught my eye was a magical event that has started, and we should all be thankful. But the one thing we shouldn't do is call it QE4. Because it's not QE4. Okay? It's not QE4. I mean, they're doing the same stuff as QE1, 2, and 3. They're hoping it has the same effect as when they did QE1, 2, and 3. There's nothing really different other than QE1, 2, or 3. But it's not QE4. And by the way, I'm talking about bullshit coming from the Federal Reserve. How we're going to get fucked more in that way. But yeah, if it walks like a duck, grows a corkscrew dick, and fucks like a duck, then it's not a fucking duck. It's a magic carpet. So, I talked about recession coming. This may stave it off for a little bit, okay? But again, another double-edged sword thing, just with how we look at other countries and how we deal with other countries. Sure, maybe it'll help out some people with jobs. Probably not. Most likely what it'll do is make the crash worse. Which I'm expecting it to be pretty fucking bad now. And I'll admit, you know, I don't have a lot of money. But I'm not as bad a situation as many people in this country are. And that's part of why I do this, is because there's a very thin line between me and other people, and it would be stupid of me not to take what little I have, or use what little I have, and try and fix it. Because if I don't, I mean, even on the selfish perspective, which, like I said, there's no such thing as altruism. If I don't, I'm going to be winding up in a worse situation than I am in now. So, let's talk about the courts. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals made a ruling recently, and this goes further into why I don't call them police anymore. I just call them the militarized profiteers who are institutionally incentivized to fuck all of us over every which way they can. But anyways, in the case of Jessup versus the city of Fresno, so let me give you the situation first. So apparently, police go in, bust these people for, I think it was drug dealing, and there was some money that they confiscated as part of the evidence. But apparently, the cops that were doing the arresting went in there and they saw some cash or something and said, "Hey, it's cash. Doesn't look like it's part of the evidence. Or maybe it is part of the evidence, but we'll just pocket it." And so the police get this thing called qualified immunity, which basically is like when they're arresting the bad guys, and the bad guys also, that they can do some stuff to break the law. And I'm oversimplifying this; it gets way more complicated, but you get the idea. So the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that the qualified immunity also includes when they want to take your shit and take it home. So if they're arresting you because if they come into your house and they arrest you because you got a dime bag, well, they get to take your TV also. That's essentially what it says. Your TV, if they arrest you and they search you and they look in your wallet and you got some money in your wallet, hey, they can just take it, stick it in their pocket. That's basically what this amounts to. And again, this is why I call them militarized profiteers, because not a whole lot of policing going on. Well, okay, that's being a little hyperbolic, but you get the point. It's getting worse and worse. And another thing of the courts I want to talk about is I want to talk more on the court case at the Supreme Court about whether or not sexual orientation is protected, ways that you can't be discriminated against. And over the weekend, because I'm just kinky like that, I listened to the arguments before the Supreme Court, and the woman whose name was Carlin, she did a very good job in her argument. However, her rebuttal I found to be a little lacking. She basically argued that you can't separate sex from sexual orientation. Then in her rebuttal, she was presented with a question from Justice Alito, who said, basically he said that if you could somehow separate the sex from sexual orientation, and he presented the case of, the hypothetical that, okay, I don't know a person's sex, I just know that they're gay or they're straight, and I fire them or I don't hire them based on that. Would that be legal under the, would that not be protected under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act? I'm tired. Anyways, and she said, no, it wouldn't be protected, which was a very dumb answer. And Justice Alito accurately pointed out that her whole argument falls apart. So, I would like to take this opportunity to fix her answer, give the answer the way that she should have answered, and answer Justice Alito's question. The fact is that you cannot separate sex from sexual orientation. And that if you could somehow, if you did somehow fire a person just based off their sexual orientation, that would still be illegal under Title VII. And here's why. You may be thinking in your head that I'm firing this person because their partner is the same sex as them, or they like having a partner that is the same sex as them. We'll say it's a thing of preference, right? Okay. Now, no one will disagree that unless a person's sex matters for their employment, for something specific to their employment, that an employer can't just say, "Oh, I have a preference for which sex I want to hire, and I'm going to do it based on that." Now, if the employee or worker, whatever, has a preference for another person being the same sex as them, well, the other person has a preference for their sex being the same as the other person. These are things that you cannot separate. This is not, there's no philosophical problems that you might have with the if P then Q stuff, all that. Again, I'm simplifying. But if a person likes another person because they are the same sex, then that other person, and that other person likes the first person because they are the same sex, then it's the same thing. Just as an employer cannot fire a person because they prefer one sex over another, then they can't fire the person because the person that they're with or would want to be with them prefers their particular sex. That becomes a discrimination based on sex. And that cannot be done according to Title VII, and is written in black and white. And I'm probably making the argument very horribly right here, but I'm pretty sure you get the point of what I'm saying. Is that the sex of the person in the relationship that is not the employee is also pertains to the sex of the person in the relationship who is the employee, or even potential relationship. It's still a discrimination based on sex. And you can't discriminate based on sex. It's right there in black and white. So there you go, Justice Alito. That's the question. That's the answer that your question should have had. And there's nothing else to say there. So I'll end the video. Until next one. Oh, but once again, if you are someone who wants a more direct democracy, then please spread the word about my candidacy. We got a lot of fixing to do.